From being an icon of late 80s action horror to ripping apart ninjas in Mortal Kombat, the Yautja, also known as the Predators, sure do get around. And as Arnie once said, they aren't exactly the most inconspicuous of movie monsters. Today we're going to take a look at the Predator's most iconic gadget and the real world science behind it, the cloaking device. Whilst hunting, the predator relies on a form of active camouflage similar to a cuttlefish when against a solid surface in order to mask its presence. But when it moves into urban terrain or out of cover, the predator prefers its cloaking device, allowing it to conceal its presence as it stalks its target. Believe it or not, this technology is actually based in reality. Let's talk science.
Possibility number 1, active camouflage. Active camouflage, or active camo for short, is the most commonly observed school of invisibility. It can be seen with just a pop into your local aquarium. Many mollusks possess a special type of cell called a chromatophore that aids them in camouflaging themselves. Take the cuttlefish, for example. This cute little guy has millions of chromatophores that aid him in his day-to-day life. They hide them from predators, help them ambush their prey, and even help them with mating. Active camo is extremely potent when observed in nature, but is quite difficult for humans or any other humanoid species to make any realistic use of. The Yautja would also struggle to find this type of camo on their planet, due to their homeworld being a nuclear hellscape that's massively radioactive and lacks any ocean and rain. The predators were originally a prey species for many massive creatures that live on their homeworld, but through gene splicing they managed to take almost every beneficial trait of their competition for themselves, driving their predators to extinction and earning them the title of apex predator. If they had access to any form of biological camo, they would have taken it. At one point during a battle, a cloaked predator is thrown into water, and sparks can be observed coming off of its cloak, and it is forced to become visible for a moment before it gets out of the water. This means that the predator's cloaking technology has to be based in some form of electricity or other technology rather than biological camouflage.
Possibility number 2, plasma stealth. Plasma stealth is a type of invisibility technology used to scatter either electromagnetic or light waves used in hiding spy planes and missiles. It uses plasma to deflect sonar and radar, and in theory could be used to deflect incoming light. This all seems perfect. There's just one glaring problem. It only works at extremely long range. If plasma stealth were viable in close quarters, it would already be in use by militaries all over the world. And since we can still see soldiers, we can guarantee that plasma stealth is not the Predator's weapon of choice. And the nail in plasma stealth's coffin is that it produces an extremely large amount of heat, as it requires constant venting of plasma around the target. With even a tertiary glance, we can tell that the Predator doesn't have anywhere on his body or in his kit that could store enough plasma to cloak himself for even a few minutes, meaning that plasma stealth is not our hunter's cloak. Option number 3, camera stealth. Camera stealth is an experimental method of cloaking vehicles that is currently in its infancy. It uses a series of cameras placed around an environment to take pictures of the area in rapid succession, which are then projected on all sides of the target, allowing vehicles such as tanks to blend in while stationary. It was first tested by the British Army in 2011. They created the first quote-unquote invisible tank. The tank was able to hide itself while not in motion, but the program was dropped as the technology was deemed far too expensive for how little use could be derived from it. This seems to fit with the Predator, as they have been observed placing and using a device called a cloaking field to hide their ships from prying eyes that might interfere with their hunts. The cloaking field is a device that seems to use the same concept as camera stealth, except on a much greater scale that allows the Yautja to hide their frankly massive capital-class ships perfectly with their environment. There's just one little problem. The cloaking field is completely stationary. When their ships take flight, the field is disengaged. One of the numerous Alien vs. Predator video games allows this device to be used by the player, and it allows the player to become invisible within a small area without the Predator's cloak's trademark light shimmer. Because of this, we can confirm that the cloaking field is a separate device and not the standard cloak that the Predators use during hunts. Our last and most likely candidate is still being explored, but has a great deal of potential. Metamaterials are currently restricted to the insides of laboratories, but one day may be seen in civilian or combat use. In a recent test, a specially engineered metamaterial was rendered invisible to microwaves and radar. The eventual goal of this experiment is to render the quote-unquote cloak invisible to light and the naked eye. With the Yautja being so much more advanced than humans and having much more time to perfect hunting technology, it is no stretch of the mind to say that the Predators will have mastered the use of metamaterials, as their cloak can also be seen on the Phoenix armor worn by the Spearmaster Predators, which, you guessed it, makes the wearer immune to microwave radiation and radar detection. This suit is specifically designed to help the Predators survive in the radioactive hellscape that is their home world, and only worn by the Spearmasters out of tradition and respect for their ancestors. A data entry in Alien vs. Predator Annihilation mentions that the armor's distinctive red plumage was made from the feathers of a now extinct species of bird that lived on Yautja Prime. This armor is passed down from generation to generation as a badge of honor. These early suits of armor would later be developed into modern armor of the Predator, which has been shown to make them immune to radiation in almost every form, as well as radar and heat detection. So, there it is. I believe I have nailed down how the Predator is able to hide himself so effectively in the jungles of South America, the streets of New York City, and even on the surfaces of foreign worlds.